everybody, so many of you here. It's going to be a talk about IntelliJ IDEA, tips and tricks, various small features of IntelliJ IDEA, randomly selected by me, and I'm going to change them as we go. So I do have a plan, but it's mostly improvisation. A little bit about myself. I'm Anton. ARHIPOV. I'm coming from Estonia. I work for JetBrains. Mostly I work with Kotlin team at JetBrains, but also help the other products and mostly do demos. And this is why I'm here for. My engineering background is in Java, so most of the examples here will actually be in Java, not in Kotlin. Let's talk a little bit about you and do a little show of hands. Is there anyone in the room who is not using IntelliJ IDEA? There is always one who uses Vim, right? Yeah, guessed it. So let's do it differently this time. Who uses Community Edition? And who uses Ultimate Edition? The majority of you. That's actually surprising to me. And in most of my talks, I've been talking about the features that cover the Community Edition and not the new ones, but those that existed there for 10 years and still people don't know about them. And today I thought I'm going to change that a little bit. I'm going to incorporate a few examples that are actually applicable to Ultimate Edition as well. Okay, so this is about the slides. Let's go to the IDE. I have an agenda, as I said. It's going to be changing as I feel going through the demos. And we're going to start with a question about themes. Dark theme, majority, you have to cope with me. I prefer the light theme. How many of you prefer the light theme? Not too many, still good choice, especially for the presentations. So how do you switch the themes? There is a little switch button right here. By the way, can you all see what's on the screen? Should I make it bigger? Yes. So the first row goes like this, and everybody says yes. So how do we make it bigger? This way. We're going to select zoom, make it 150. It's going to be OK. I'm going to zoom in whenever it's relevant, right? So every time when I'm calling something, some action, you're going to be seeing this little pop-up with a shortcut. And check this out. I can move it across the screen to any place. That's called Presentation Assistant. You can switch it on in the settings if you feel doing that. One day you can select the position, you can select the size and so on, but well, we sometimes gonna be moving it just like this because it overlays over some elements that are relevant to some places. Let's check the other things that are available, like the theme, right? We have the dark theme by default, the default light theme. I prefer the light theme with the light header. There is a high contrast one. Who uses high contrast? Nobody. It's very nice when you have to do coding in real dark. And of course, you can install any others, like from the marketplace. Dark purple is very convenient sometimes. But let's switch to the light mode now. What else is there? You can switch the color themes, coding styles, K-maps. I'm using my own customized K-map, which is actually based on IntelliJ IDEA Classic, even though I'm using Mac. There is a dedicated K-map for Mac OS. The shortcuts that are displayed in the top right now, whenever I click something, right? They are for the classic keyboard, not exactly the same keystrokes that I'm pressing, but that's more relevant to you. And the other interesting two menu points that you can find in the switch menu are the view mode and the layout. So the layout, let's start with the layout. You may select some of the windows to be visible, like this. Like this, you can put up the terminal. And while you work, you're probably going to change and close the windows, change their size and so on. But you want to have some default state that you might want to get back to. And this layout submenu is going to help you with that. So you may say that, My default layout is like this. And whenever I want to go to some other layout for some other task that I'm working on, you may select something else that you have predefined for yourself and store it like as a layout. The other menu point, the view mode, this is where you can switch between the presentation mode, distraction-free mode, when it removes everything from the workbench, basically like this. But for many things, I just prefer using the full screen with and removing everything on the sides. So the view mode is not what I'm using all the time. Instead, I prefer to remove the tabs. So if you noticed, there is just one tab for me right here on the top, right? It's only one file visible. So by default, you're gonna see tab placement like this on the top. And whenever you open any more files, they start piling up, and sometimes they start shifting out of the screen because you open too many files. I prefer just to keep one file open and then, you know, remove the real estate from the UI. So I keep it to none like this. And if I'm feeling fancy, then I can remove the sidebars, like with the project view, the commit messages, whatever is on the side. I can switch it off as well. I'm gonna keep it for now. But then people will start asking me the questions, Anton, how do you actually navigate in this case if you remove everything and you keep only the editor open? The trick here is that Command E or Control E shortcut actually gets you almost everywhere. The recently opened files, the tool views, so you don't really need to even remember all the individual shortcuts to all the locations. You can just use this one, or the other variation of it, Command Shift E, gets me to the edited places, right? So it kind of covers 80% of my needs for the navigation, and for some places that I use very often, like going to the project view, I have a dedicated shortcut that I remember, or opening the terminal. A little bit about the project view. So a lot of people just take it as granted and don't customize it. There is a lot of customizations you can do. For instance, when you select the file, just select it in the tree. Some people prefer to open it with one click without double clicking, just open it on the site immediately. And for that, you have like an option, open files with a single click. I don't really like this one myself, because whenever I go to the tree and start navigating, it starts opening the files for me, and this is not what I want. I don't want to see the files blinking on the side. So I actually switch it off myself, and when I start navigating, you know, there is this, you know, desire sometimes to look it up, what's in the file. You can do it quickly by just hitting the space button, like this, you know. That's it. There are other things that you might want to configure for yourself. Whenever you open some file, like let's close the tree. So the project tree is closed. You don't really see the structure of the project, but you navigate to some location in the project, and let's say we open this data file here. It's gonna be immediately selected in the tree. So there is an option for that as well. Always select open file. Nice. And vice versa, right? So it works both ways. You either configure one click here, or the behavior to open the location in the tree if you opened any file or navigate it somewhere. About navigation, there are a lot of helpers for navigation, especially if you are working with large projects. You may want to store some positions in the project, like favorites view. You probably know about that and probably have seen it, but probably don't really use it too much. There is this bookmarks view where you can set the bookmarks or you can overview all the bookmarks you have set in the project. How do you set the new bookmark? F11 is basically an anonymous bookmark that appears immediately in the view, and then you will have to locate it in the list and somehow click, and then you will navigate. But for some places, you may want to have a named bookmark, like setting the mnemonic like this. So command F11 gives me the ability to set any of the numbers or keystrokes, and then I will be able to directly go into any of those places that are marked with those bookmarks. Like Control-1 gets me to the bookmark number 1, for instance. So there are a lot of means for navigation, as I said, but mostly you would select the one that works best for you and you stick to that one and don't really look at the rest. This is what I see people doing. Let's write some code now instead, because this is what we are here for, right? Looking at someone typing at the keyboard. So I have this agenda here. It gets in the way. I'm going to fold it. By the way, who knows about folding? Are you using it? Do you know that it actually becomes a structural element in the file? So whenever you create a new region that is foldable, main method, let's call it main method. I don't know. Is it visible again? Yeah, from the back rows. Good, good, nice. So when we fold it, and if we want to see the structure, we're going to be seeing the new element, main method, becomes the structural element in the file as well. That's a nice thing. So you can create your own kind of structured sub-menus out of the comments and out of the regions in the file. Sometimes helpful. But let's start writing code like this. Maybe I will zoom in a little bit. How do we start a program in Java? The main method, right? What do you type to create a main method in PSVM? That shows that you have been using IntelliJ for more than 5 years, right? Because those who have learned PSVM once, they didn't look further. And we actually introduced a new type alias like 7 years ago, probably, main, which is more logical for the newcomers. Okay, so you know what it is. It's a live template, right? You can get a list of live templates with Command J and start, searching for by description, like iterate or iterate over. Command J. So you can start filtering by that by the description, iteration. For instance, and if I select it and I expand it, then it's going to delete the string that I was using for filtering and expand the live template for me, right? So that's a nice feature, and we're going to be using live templates a lot. So I'm going to write some code here that is going to read a file line by line, and we will see what kind of IDE features I'm using. By the way, I have disabled the completion by the AI assistant right now, because otherwise it gets in the way of demonstrating all those nice features. But we're going to enable that later on. So how do I read the file? Buffered reader, the old way. Hardest problem in computer science, solved by IntelliJ IDEA here. Proposes reader or buffered reader, like technical name derived from the type. So what should I type here? Like usually I would type something like new, right? New buffered reader. And we see that IntelliJ gets ahead a little bit and shows me the type that might suit here. It might be a subtype of that declared variable as well. So further on, new file reader. Nice. Can you see those red and green arrows going down and up. So while I'm typing and while I'm selecting the options that auto-completion suggests to me, there is a little ML engine in IntelliJ resorting according to my choices what I have selected from the auto-completion, and those green and red arrows are showing that the elements have been resorted or rearranged in my auto-completion list. How do I see how it's enabled or any configuration for that? We can go to the completion settings, code completion. There is machine learning assisted completion section, and there is sort completion suggestions based on machine learning, and a few checkboxes that I can enable to show me the indication that it's working, and the order of those options is changing as well. I can enable that by the language too. Okay, so let's continue. File reader, we need probably a file. I'm doing this line long on purpose. Lines.txt, and what I do here, I complete the statement with a shortcut, Command Shift Enter for me, and now I have a non-compiling code. What should I do here? Any guesses? Alt Enter, right? That's a good answer, but not really correct, because to fix the error here, I need to navigate to the error, and then I can do Alt Enter. So before that, I can either just, pressing the arrow or pointing and clicking. That's one option, and then I can do Alt Enter. The other option, which is very efficient, I think, is using F2 keystroke, which is going to navigate through the file wherever I'm standing, right here, F2, and it jumps to the next error. Currently, it's the single error. If my cursor was at the end of this line, it's going to reach the end of the file, and it's going to start over. Otherwise, if I had more errors in my file, and I had to go to the previous one that is before my cursor, I can use Shift F2 like this, and well, it's going backwards. That's the logic for many places where you have a navigation or any editing functionality that jumps forward, like with tab when you expand the live templates, for instance. The same logic applies here. You can use Shift to go backwards in the same template if you have many placeholders to fill in and you missed something and you want to go back. Instead of deleting and expanding the live template, you can just go back using the Shift key. So Alt Enter, let's handle this exception properly. Once you fixed all the errors, you still have warnings, maybe. F2 can then start jumping over warnings, and you can use Alt Enter to clean it up. So at this position, what we did, we wrote the first line of code. It's a little deeply nested, so we may want to extract the variables. If your cursor is at the position at the very nested place in the expression, and you extract a variable, it's going to ask which part of it you want to extract. Okay, let's skip that for now. Let's go and write another line of code. We're going to read the lines of code into a collection. My favorite collection is the array list of strings. Now we have the right-hand side of the expression where we intend to write a list strings or list of strings equals a new array list, right? We have the right-hand side of the expression. In Java, we have diamond operator, so we wouldn't have to type the type parameter on the right. But currently, we need to express our intent that the array list will be a list of strings. So we have to write that there. But if we extract a variable, Command Option V, it's gonna remove the type parameter from the right, and it's going to create two placeholders. You see the type placeholder and the variable name placeholder. The position is at the latter one because Well, it's rare that you need to change the type, but you can without, completing the template and then manually changing the type. You can use the Shift tab and jump back to the type definition and select something else. That's just a fun fact. I think it's not something you do every day, but so that you know that it's possible. But you move further with tab key, and every time you have any pop-up with lists or like a completion list or anything like that, in many places in IntelliJ, you have a little hint telling you what else you can do there. So in this case, this little text here says that I can press Option Shift O to get something on top of my, operation. So let's do that. Option Shift O gives me this little setting where I can choose to declare my new variable as final or using the type inference. How do I select any of those options? It seems to be I have to be clicking here. In any dialog where you have to select something or push the button or select something like radio button or anything like that, you can actually hold the option key and then you will see that, can you see it there, like F and V are actually underlined right now. So now I can select F and it's going to add this final modifier right here. So, and I can, remove it. So this logic applies in many dialogues, and this is something you will find useful when you don't want to, grab the mouse and click something. Okay, so we are done with this statement. We expanded it. We're gonna need a buffer variable to read into, and we're gonna read the lines in a cycle while in a while loop, and we need to assign a value which is going to be a line from the file. So if I know the API and I know that I'm going to use the reader and there is this read line method that I'm going to use, I can just type r.r and very high probability is that I'm going to get a good enough suggestion right in the top. It works nicely with Java. I don't think it's implemented for other languages, but it works even greater when you have similar variables. Let's say I have two readers. I type r.r and I get, oops, Mac is getting in the way, r.r like this, right? So I have two variables, both suggest me the read line method. Nice. I'm going to select the first one. And doesn't have to be null. Oops. No. Now, how many of you know about ligatures? Some of you? That's a feature of a font that is supported by IntelliJ. So it's not something available by default. If your font doesn't come with ligatures, then you will not see them. But if the font supports ligatures, you need to enable them. And I don't remember if they are enabled by default, but it's easy to find ligatures. Here they are. So I'm using JetBrains Mono font by default. That's a default font in IntelliJ IDEA. And then enable ligatures enables those nice characters for the combination of normal characters, right? It's like in the file when you open it, like in the text editor that doesn't support ligatures, you will still see normal ASCII symbols. It's not that something is replaced there. Good. Close the block, or actually open the block and put the caret in the new line position. Now, again, we have this compilation error. We know how to fix it, right? Shift F2 gets us there. Alt Enter. Now, it seems that the method signature is going to be replaced, and read line throws IO exception, but we already have file not found exception in the signature, which is a subtype of IO exception, so it would make it excessive. So if we now select to fix it this way, the file not found exception will be replaced with IO exception. Good. So we go further. Now we need to add this line into the collection. We know the collection name, it's strings, and we know the method name that we're going to use, it's add, right? So s.a is going to give us with a very high probability is going to give us this nice option to add the line. Okay, at this point we can complete this statement either using the shortcut or just typing semicolon, because there is no other way why you would need semicolon before the brace. Boom. So we have the statement completed. Now we realize, okay, we actually want to put the lines, add only the lines to the collection that are not empty, and I need to write an if statement. So live templates give me this possibility to wrap. Some of the live templates have this implicit variable called select or selection. I don't remember exactly, but we can look it up in the configurations. And if a live template includes that selection in the definition, then it becomes applicable for wrapping the statements or any pieces of code. In this case, if I'm going to call command option T, it's going to suggest me a few live templates that I can use to wrap the statement. In this case, I want to generate an if expression. So if a line is not empty or not blank, so if I have selected any of those options that return a Boolean here, then I can complete this statement with the exclamation mark instead of enter to negate the expression. And here I can just type shift 1 or the exclamation mark now, and it's going to add this exclamation mark in the beginning of the expression, and my cursor ends in this position, in the correct one. Not now. Okay, so at this point I have read all the lines into my collection, and I can close the reader, and I can start doing something with the lines. Let's remove the excessive buffered reader from here. So what can I do? I, for instance, want to convert the collection into array or array into collection. I remember doing this quite a lot, because when you use different libraries with different APIs, some of the APIs return collection, the other API accepts an array as a parameter, so sometimes you need to convert it. And there is a live template for that. ToArray gives you that. So, and then we can just use the extract variable refactoring to get to the array. Or there is another option with the completion. If you know that you need an array, you can actually call type-aware completion. And if you type it once, it's Control-Shift-Space. It will actually scan the file and see what options fit here by the type. And the only thing it finds right now is the args variable, of course. But if you insist and ask it more, you type it twice, 1, 2, it's going to give you more options. It's going to start scanning whatever else is in the project, and sometimes you can type it 3 times. It's going to scan the libraries as well and give you even more options. So we can select that. Moving on with live templates, iteration. That's probably the most used live template for me. Iterate over strings, for instance. How else we can, what else we can do here? For instance, we want to print a string as out. We can do just a clean print line or print with the name. So we gonna take the variable name, put it into the templates, expand it, get a new string, and we get this nice debug statement. Or what I also sometimes was doing, printing out the method name and then also the parameters, and it's smart enough to expand on the arrays as well. So it's gonna format it nicely. Instead of object reference, is going to print out a nice debug line. You know how to create your own live templates, don't you? Let's try that. So string, or before that, let's see how else we can print this line out. We've been using sout live template, but there is also thing something in the middle of live templates and refactorings, and that is called postfix completion. So if I'm using postfix completion, or like I type a variable name, I type a dot, and I get the completion list. At the end of the completion list, I will actually see all the postfix completions available for this type of the expression. And if I select any of them, actually sout is applicable here, it's going to expand as a live template, but as a typed live template, depending on the expression that I'm applying it to. So it's the same, and I can do that with any values as well, and for instance, declare a variable. Why not? So it becomes a style of coding when you start using the postfix completions, and some people get used to that, they start applying it everywhere. So how we can go about live templates? Shift save as live template. And what do we get here? We can set our own abbreviation, let's say PP, and we can set our own placeholders. For instance, I would like to be able to set my own name for the variable, some name, and then I can set a position for the placeholder or for the cursor where it should end, and I can even set a placeholder and say it should be a command. And currently it's just a placeholder, but I can assign it a command. So if I go to edit variables right here, let's say I want whenever I fill in the name for the variable, on the next step it's going to jump into that command placeholder and call completion in that position. So if I try to expand this, pp, type name, s, enter, and it jumps into the middle of the loop where I define my placeholder command, or command placeholder, and it's called some function, in this case completion pop-up. Once I'm done with that, it's going to jump at the end of the predefined template. Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, we have the snippet of code we have been writing for a while now. It seems to be all correct, but when in doubts, you can hit Alt-Enter, and maybe the IDE will suggest something. So let's do that, and let's transform our code a little bit. Collect, we are using a newer Java, so it's not a collect method, but toList instead. Now we have two lines here that are very close together. We probably want to join them. So there's if we just start deleting these lines like this, we have to delete more characters. Instead, we can just with a one keystroke merge those two lines and don't have to do anything else. So maybe try with resources instead of manual closing the buffer reader like this, right? We have 3 lines of code now. Let's extract this one into a method. Read lines from file, and well, I wish we could do it like this: return and the result of try. We cannot have all the nice things, so I'm going to do it like this and remove the excessive statements. Now, let's talk a little bit more about refactorings. This is something I haven't been showing in my previous versions of this talk. If we have some constant right here and we want to make it a parameter, let's say we can decide that there should be a file name, but maybe it should be not just a file name, but also a suffix, the file extension. So we select the substring of this string and introduce a suffix parameter to the function. Now that's a single one, and you see it was propagated into the call site right here. And we can do with the something similar with the other substring lines, and say we should have a name of the file as well. So let's do that, file name. And because we are doing it in a reverse order, first of all the suffix and the file name, I ended up with a little bit illogical signature. It feels to my taste it would be nicer to have something like file name and the suffix, like different order of the parameters. What we can do here, of course, we can manually, select, cut, paste, and go further. But there is also a shortcut for changing the order of parameters automatically. Command Option Shift and arrow is going to flip the parameters. Very efficient and very convenient for the test data. For instance, if you are defining a list of values and you want to reorder them somehow, move some value into the other position, you can use the shortcut to do that. The problem here, if I do it this way, I'm gonna be changing only the parameters order here, but not the values in the call side. So for this, we better use a real refactoring. So in this small example, of course, I could do it just, with a couple of strokes, first in the method signature, and then on the call side, and it would be fixed. But then if I have more locations in the project where I have to change that, that's not gonna scale. So there is a better way of doing this. Refactor menu, refactor this, and there is this change signature refactoring that is going to help you with that. So if you reorder the parameters right here, it's gonna apply, this change in all the call sites in the project as well. Refactor, so change the order, right? Or vice versa, let's do reverse refactoring here. We don't really need those parameters, so we can inline them, inline the file name, and you see the lines parameter has gone from here and now it's back into this position. Now we can do the same with the suffix, but now we ended up with the string concatenation, which is, you probably want it as one string, as one constant. Alt Enter. Compute constant value for this expression, select, and it will merge it back, right? Now we have a nice line that we probably want to debug. Line here. Let's make it shorter. Let's multiply this thing so that it becomes more complex. So we are interested in the lines that are not starting with, let's say, A, and the lines that probably are longer. No. Size. Was it? No, length, right? Greater than 3, for instance. So this line doesn't fit into the screen even, and it's not normal to write this kind of code, but what happens if you cannot change it and you need to debug it? If you set a breakpoint on such line, Command F8, it's going to say that you're able to set the expression breakpoints into the different stages of the stream. That's a nice feature, applicable probably not for everything. Just nice to know that it's there, immediately visible. You can click it, or if your cursor stands right in the expression, you can actually toggle it on and off. But there is a better way of debugging this kind of streams. So if you run this, let me run it, it's gonna hit the breakpoint, I hope, once the Gradle starts. There it is. Yeah, so it hits the line. For such streams, when you have multiple stages, debugging like every expression one by one is probably not so efficient. You need to visualize it better. Something like Excel, maybe. So there is a way to visualize that in the in the debugger. It's called stream debugger. That's embedded into the package. So there is this button trace current stream chain. Currently, I have put it into the toolbar, but by default, it's under this menu. It's going to be visible here. So if you hit that, it's going to eagerly read the contents of the file and visualize it at every stage. You will be able to see and navigate through, the pipes and see how it transforms. Of course, writing this code is not nice, so we probably have to reformat it. How do I do that? Maybe I can multiply the cursor, Command Control G, and just go here and reformat it like line by line. Maybe I could do some transformations along the way, like map a line into a user, or a string into a user, new user, of course. Sorry for this. New. And I can, of course, replace the lambda with method reference and maybe map it back again with toString. So what I'm seeing here is the transformation from the string type into a user type into a string type again. And for this, when you have it properly formatted, like line by line, then the IDE will show you the hints how the type is changing, which is also very useful. Now we started debugging, and I want to show you a few debugger features with the breakpoints. So it's possible to configure the breakpoints in various ways, but one of those interesting types of breakpoints is being able to set them on the interfaces, or especially on the interface methods. So for instance, in this case, I have a base interface with two methods, with boo that has two implementations, foo has two implementations as well, but boo is being used. I can even see how it's where, here in the main method, I'm invoking boo. But foo method is not being used according to static analysis. So if I set the breakpoint, but imagine I can observe the behavior of the application that attributes to the foo method invocation. So I want to know, how is it possible? I don't see that foo is being used anywhere, but the program behaves in a way that it does. So I can set the breakpoint right here and debug the whole application and see what happens. So I can see that it really is invoking a foo method in some of the implementations, even though I didn't set the breakpoint in this method, right? I set it into the interface. So how is it possible that it's being invoked? Of course, via reflection, but the reflection can use, or the invocation via reflection can use a name of a method that is a result of an expression. So you might not have the constant, the name constant in the code, so it wouldn't be able to actually find it by name or with a text search. That's interesting ability of the debugger to actually being able to set the breakpoints to the code that doesn't exist yet. So I might not have the implementation in the source code. I can set the breakpoint to any method, Java method, and say, I want to intercept that method name to call method, right? And it, let's see, of any class, for instance, right? So I said, I want to stop at any class that calls method pattern and run the debugger again. Let's see what happens. If I didn't do a mistake, it's gonna stop there. Right. So the method name to call, was intercepted. So basically, you don't need to have the source code to be able to intercept any invocation of a method in the JVM. The code might be generated by some library. For instance, if you want to debug proxies, generated by some framework. There are other interesting features in the debugger, but I have to skip that and show you something else that might be interesting to the Ultimate IDEA users, the AI assistant. That's a fancy new thing, right? Have you seen how it works? Have anyone tried using it? A few of you? Nice. So it's integrated into IntelliJ IDEA, and integrated means not the chat. So usually when people start talking about the assistants, they show you the chat. But this is exactly what I try to avoid myself. So let me see one example here. We have the code here, the algorithm that you probably wouldn't be able to recognize that does something. It's, scrambled. You wouldn't recognize the variable names. Just by looking at the code, you wouldn't tell what this code is doing. You probably will spend some time debugging it and then understand what it is. Alt enter on this, and if I have AI assistant enabled, I can ask it to explain the code via this menu. So it will send the code to the chat, and of course I will start reading it. It's like reading the documentation. So a nice side effect of using AI assistants is that everybody is going to be reading the documentation, maybe. But let's say I know that the algorithm, what the algorithm is doing, and I want to improve it a little bit. What I like doing, and when using AI assistant, is that I can select any code right here, invoke the completion or the code generation, inline code generation, which becomes, which starts taking the selection as a as an input. So I can say, for this selection, please refactor the code, or let's do that on a file, on a full file. Let's do that on the full class. So select it, call the completion, refactor for readability, keep class and method names, because I want to integrate this patch later into my project, and if it changes the API or the surface of the API, that's going to break my call sites. Method names, extract magic constants, and maybe do not return null as a result. And let's see what happens. It's gonna pop up the side-by-side view, and it's going to generate the new code, and I will be able to see how it maps to my original code, and if I can integrate the patch into my application. Nice. Comes up with pretty nice naming. The code becomes more verbose but more readable. Let's accept it. For the parts that I didn't rename, right, the public methods I didn't rename, and the class names I didn't rename, I can actually invoke the normal rename refactoring, and there we will see a better integration with the AI assistant. So it complements the existing functionality, enriches the options that you can select from. So instead of just selecting the technical name based on the type or the variable names, it actually comes up with domain specific names for this method. Calculate, find convex hull or something like that. And that D class suddenly, because it understands the nature of the code now, D class can get a better name as well. Instead of being D, it could be a coordinate or a point or a position or something else. Right, let's do that. Select all. Finish. Good. Before doing this kind of transformations, of course, I should have generated, or I should have had the unit test. But imagine I'm working with the code that is a legacy code. I don't have any tests. Bad situation to end up in. But the AI assistant can still help here as well. Before doing the transformations with the code, I could ask it to generate the unit tests as well. And if I don't like what it generated, I can specify some extra constraints. So when talking about the AI assistants in the IDE, there are default workflows that are predefined for you, but you can define your own prompts and integrate them into the IDE, or jump into the chat and add more constraints to the existing prompt so that the result satisfies your needs. So that's the AI assistant, and my time is up. I wanted to show more, but there's so many things. Let's do a show of hands who have learned something today. Perfect, my job here is done. I'm very happy. If you have more questions for me, I'm here all along, and yeah, thanks for coming, and have a nice conference.